welcome to the Hay Combined Authority Executive Board meeting. Item 1, do we have any apologies?
No, we've got one apology from Councillor Handley and Councillor Coulter. She's here substituting for her.
Well, item 2, declarations of interest. Do we have any member wish to make any declarations of interest in relation to any business on the agenda in today's meeting? No. Item 3, the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of October. Would anyone like to move and second the minutes in the last meeting, please?
I'm about to move that.
Possibly. Thank you. So Mayor's announcements. I do have a few short updates for everybody. First, after the government's announcement on police governance reform, the Police and Crime Commissioner wrote to the leaders and myself across the Humber. I welcomed his update. I agree we should all meet early in the new year once the white paper is published. We know this is an uncertain time for his office and staff, and we will approach this transition in a sensible way and a collaborative way. Second, we've secured 30 million from the local growth plan fund. This is great news for our region. This fund will support the priorities in our local growth plan. Our consultation on the plan is also now live. This is a major piece of work for the Combined Authority. It sets out our long-term priorities for transport, skills and economic development. And third, I'm sure everyone's aware that the mayors now have the option to introduce an overnight levy. I would like to approach this on a different way. I'm just speaking to the team and getting some advice on consultations on seeing we can do an option where actually the levy is optional. It gives people an opportunity if they want to contribute into our tourism, into our region, then they have the choice to do so or not. I think it will take all the stress away from all the businesses if people have an option whether they want to contribute or not. And if they would like to contribute, it would then get recycled back into the system, back into the tourism, make it a better place. But for just if you'd like, for the leaders and everyone around the table, I'm happy to go away, speak to the officers and put some papers together for next board meeting around that. So yeah. Okay, thank you. Moving on. Let's go to item 5 on the public questions. Have we received any questions?
Yes, Mayor, we've received one question. Would you like me to read it out?
Oh, yes, please.
It's a question from Mr. Morris. Has the board actively considered the voices of young people as key stakeholders in its decision-making processes? And would it be open to establishing a young people's advisory board to ensure local young people have a structured opportunity to influence and shape the board's work moving forward?
Well, thank you to Mr. Morris for his question. Young people do matter for this region. A lot of decisions we make on skills, transport, regeneration, digital access affects them directly. Their views already come through in so many of our roundtable discussions that we have been holding with partners. You have suggested setting up a new people's advisory board. I understand why, but I think creating another panel is not the right approach. It would mean extra costs, extra infrastructure, extra meetings and extra effort. We already have 2 strong youth parliaments in Hull and East Yorkshire. They work well, they involve hundreds of young people and they are trusted by both councils. It makes more sense to build on what already exists rather than starting something new. I have asked the officers to look at how we can create a clear route for the youth parliaments to feed into our way, including the local growth plan. Young people have a direct voice and decisions that we take. Thank you again for raising this question. If Mr. Morris could follow up with my office, I will ensure we get an update to him straight away. Thank you. Moving on to item 6. Reports from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and any other committees on the Combined Authority. If Councillor Meredith can take over from here, great.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mayor. Thank you for inviting me to the table today. Really, I'm actually just quite glad to be able to be here to have that link between scrutiny and between the board. Ultimately, everybody around this table will feed into all the decisions that get made and all the actions that the authority takes. And scrutiny has spent an inordinate amount of hours discussing many, many things. There's centuries worth of experience around that table with councillors from across Hull, from across the East Riding, urban areas, rural areas. And so I would like to think that the information we can provide, the assessments we can undertake, the oversight we can offer, will all mean that every decision around here can be better informed, more well-rounded, and reach out. A really good example would be the Community Fund you discussed a meeting or two ago. And that was something that was launched by this board, and it was £1 million, and it was focused almost entirely on the areas most in need. That was described or defined as deprivation. Scrutiny looked at this and realised that isolation was the other side of that coin and recommended that isolation be a measure both in accessibility, but also in any prioritisation. And that was something that this board recognised and thanked Scrutiny for. And it was a very, very good example of how scrutiny can feed into the process and I hope help with some of the heavy lifting. So basically, I've come here to say that there's a lot that we're doing, a lot that we're happy to do, and to answer any questions any of you may have.
Right, we'll move on to, no.
I suppose it's usually scrutiny doing the asking of the questions. This is a nice turnaround.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to thank yourself as chairman of scrutiny and the audit committee for all the work you've undertaken on behalf of the Local Government Authority. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Tucker.
Thank you. Can I ask, in addition to the thanks, can I ask whether at this point scrutiny how worked up the work programme is and what foreseeing what the scrutiny committee wants to look at over the next 6 months, the rest of this year?
They have indeed, Councillor Ross. There was actually in this very room at the end of October, almost a month ago to the day, in fact, a workshop day. Whoever planned it must have had a very interesting sense of humour to put Julian on right after lunch. So we had a good finance briefing. In fact, there was 5 hours of updates at that meeting, and we sat down to work out our work programme afterwards. Thankfully, I've been very well supported by Louise, by Kunwa. We were able to ensure a draft programme was presented to the committee, so we didn't start with just a blank slate. We had the local growth plan and the game plan at our last meeting. In fact, I believe you're attending our next meeting, Councillor Ross.
Used to me, but I'll take your word for it.
But there's also only so much facility in this newly formed authority, and there is within the remit of the scrutiny committee the ability to do a working group or a review panel, depending on the nomenclature you prefer. However, at this point in time, it was felt that it'd be more prudent to use the 3 slots available before May next year to make sure that we could be briefed on a wider range of topics. And so Councillor Tucker was volunteered by the members of the scrutiny committee who believe that transport will link everything everybody does around this table. People can't get to the health and wellbeing activities, they can't gain skills. With Councillor Cultish standing in for Councillor Handley, they can't get to places of employment. And indeed, housing becomes either accessible or not from Councillor Dadd's perspective, dependent upon transport. So with all of that in mind, we thought that was the best place to start the journey, if you'll pardon the pun, and volunteered Councillor Tucker for the first briefing for the committee as well. So really sunk our teeth into it and are working the Democratic Services team as hard as we're allowed to.
If that work programme can be set, that'd be
Absolutely no problem at all.
Councillor Meredith, I think you're doing a fantastic job chairing the scrutiny. And you know, I think it's been very productive so far, the meetings that I have been attending, challenging us at our best to keep us on our best form, which is exactly how it should be. So thank you for all the work.
Very much appreciated, Mayor, and thank you for attending all of our meetings so far. The ethos has always been to commend what's good and recommend what we'd like to see done differently, and that critical friend approach has thus far yet been a very positive way of going about things.
Spot on, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 7, Acres pay and grade framework. I will hand over to Miriam to present the report.
Thank you, Mayor. So this paper won't come as a surprise to members. Everybody has seen it in terms of the informal board, and it's been out for consultation for quite some time now. What we have done is we've benchmarked salaries across the National Joint Council, and we've created a framework that has 8 grades within it, aligned to the NJC pay points. a couple of points to draw people's attention to. If you look on page 27 of 84, we have there the full grading framework with all of the salary ranges there. Just for clarity for members, grade 8, the executive leadership, including CEO, is down there as spot salaries. And what that means in reality is that the majority of directors will start at the bottom of that scale on 130,000. The chief executive role is rolled into that grade 8, but they will start at a higher level. The 170 point is something that was agreed a long time ago when we went out for recruitment for a chief executive, and that was always laid in there as for an exceptional candidate. All of the rest of it has been benchmarked across other combined authorities and across local authorities nationally. Happy to take any questions, but I think people have seen the detail before and we have had comments and amended as a result.
Thank you. I'll just go to Councillor Tucker first and then John.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the update. Thank you, Matt. I've read this in sort of back to front, sideways, up, down, everywhere. There are for me, there are some issues that still need ironing out, and based on that, my proposal today is that I'm going to delegate the principal and defer to the chief executive, to yourself, Matt, to Councillor Ross and Councillor Handley, to go away and look at the technical matters regarding this. And so it is depending at delegation, and that's what I'm moving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sorry, I would defer to a deputy leader of council every day of the week.
I was just going to second Councillor Tucker. I fully accept and agree with what said there. I think it needs that further look across the face.
So sorry, Councillor Down, I didn't see you.
No, I didn't
put
put
your
your
hand
hand
up.
up, so
Okay.
I was just thinking I need to go in and second before somebody puts another amendment.
Okay.
They did.
No, I was going to put an amendment.
So, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Tucker has moved to accept the recommendations in the report in principle, subject to delegating matters of a minor and technical detail to the chief executive in consultation with yourself. Councillor Tucker has moved that. Councillor Dadd has seconded that. It therefore falls to
And the leaders.
and the leaders. Yeah.
With Councillor Ross and Councillor Handley.
That's been moved by Councillor Tucker, seconded by Councillor Dadd. It falls to a vote.
I'm happy to support.
All those in favour? That's unanimous, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome.
Could I just come in to inform that process if I could? I absolutely support the minimal banding approach. Absolutely spot on. I have a couple of queries. One of us already been asked and I think answered. I just I'm a bit concerned about the benchmarking. It does seem quite a lot more than bigger combined authorities in the region, and we're talking perhaps tens of thousands more in some instances. I would encourage the scrutiny that's going to go over this to look at that. And also, what seemed rather odd to me, the grades are concurrent. So you've got they're quite wide as a result of being concurrent grades, and so obviously that makes it more expensive going down the road, because you can rise to the top of that grade, I assume, through some form of management process. I think you've answered the question regarding the CEO, but just to give an example, I mean, I think it's North Yorkshire where I looked at them. The manager's grade is about up there it is about 53,000. And here it's 53,000 to 73,000. Now that seems a lot of money. So I really do think there's a piece of work to do, because I'm in a lot of respect, Mayor Campbell, I'm trying to protect you, because if you don't get this right, then there will be all hell in the press if it seems that you've done this without due process, and not the due process, but without significant scrutiny. And also when I look down to Lincolnshire as well, because I'm on the Lincolnshire Combined Authority Board. The mayor down there, I didn't think actually was too unreasonable in what she was proposing as far as salaries was concerned. And she got a lot of criticism from the media. And believe me, in my experience in Humberside compared to Lincolnshire, the media in Lincolnshire are an awful lot more calm and collected than sometimes the media. And those media in the room, and somebody's going to shoot me at some point for saying this. They're a little bit more on the point, shall we say, in this region, as I found to my cost.
Point of clarification, if I may, Mr. Mayor. The reason that we have deferred and delegated back to yourself, the chief executive and the two leaders, is exactly the point the BCC has been made, and that has been recognised. I just want to.
No, I welcome the feedback, thank you, and I think we've already answered that question, I agree by delegating this, so no, thank you, appreciate it.
Just can I add through you, Matt, I agree with what Dave just said, that is exactly the reasons that we've. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, moving on to item 8, AKHR policy framework, I'll hand over to Miriam, 2%.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, in my view, the most interesting point on the agenda, but I know everybody. What I've brought, essential work. What I've brought to you this month, as promised at the last executive board, is a further tranche of draft HR policies for approval. They include a very big policy on other leave that we've rolled in: maternity leave, paternity leave, bereavement leave, jury leave, adoption leave, family leave, the full works all into one policy. Absence management, recruitment and selection, travel, accommodation and subsistence. The plan is to bring a further tranche and the final tranche of major HR policies through into the board in January, and these are currently in draft and being consulted on. So we have women in January, menopause, flexible working, redundancy, domestic abuse, learning and development, retirement, relocation, substance misuse, work experience, and managing work performance. So there's quite a chunk there where we're moving the authority on in terms of its scrutiny and its ability to manage its own workforce. I'm not proposing to go through any of the details of the policy unless anyone has any questions. But the policies are there for you to read.
Just one quick question, thank you, Mayor, and thanks, I really appreciate that. And it's really, really important, and thank you for doing it, because all these policies coming in and are absolutely key. It was just one question I had in particular, it was on page 43 at 5.4, and it's advertising vacancies. And it's just sort of an explanation of, if there's vacancy, is it absolute that the intention is to always go internally before an external? I need to bring you back around that, or would it be an external and an internal at the same time when necessary?
Well, at this point in time, we don't have internal because
Exactly,
we're
that
all
was my
agency.
question.
So, but I mean, the point is, what the mayor would like to do is to get the best people for the jobs
Exactly.
across the piece. So we're proposing that we will be doing external recruitment and reviewing and getting the best candidates for each role.
And it's just that the policy is actually saying internal, when we don't really have an internal, and then that would go.
Well, I think longer term, when we've got a big internal workforce, we would want to develop people internally. But at this stage, with setup, we'll definitely be going on external.
It's flexible.
Yeah.
I think it's just the wording, because it says all the one authority vacancies will be advertised internally, which I agree with. Then it says in addition where additional external advertising is deemed necessary. So I think the point that made is around actually whether we just do both at the same time rather than doing internal and then if need to do external.
Yeah, I mean, this yes is the answer, and the reality is that this policy is future proof. It's for when we're a much bigger organisation, but we are still at startup phase, so we will be going on external, and we will be doing that flexibly across the piece in terms of our development as an organisation.
Thanks very much.
Any other questions?
Councillor Carter, you're moving the recommendation.
Yes, I will do that, sorry, formally I will move that recommendation, but that is.
Yeah.
And it moves and be reviewed.
No, thank you, thanks.
Moved and seconded, all those in
Yeah.
favour? Unanimous, okay.
Item 9, combined authority investment. I will hand over to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, for members of the executive board, Steve Scout's not here, so we've brought me instead. There's two things that need to be done on this report. First of them is to deal with a minor administrative error. So if I could take members to page 65 of 84. Under the heading from 2, scope. The nature of the administrative error is that a sentence has been lost when the report has gone through the publication process, and this is to do with how Microsoft deal with track changes. So the sentence in question, which should appear under the 2 bullet points, is as follows. Investment decisions relating to stroke crossing into other portfolio areas, open brackets, for example, skills, transport, housing, health, close brackets, will be made in consultation with the relevant portfolio holders. And that sentence should appear after the 2 bullet points and before the sentence, any portfolio holder has the right to attend the investment board when it considers funds in the scope of their portfolio. So the first thing to ask members is if members and you, Mayor, are happy to amend that administrative error.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Great.
thank you. So the next part of presenting this report, Mr. Mayor, is to note that this is a report that deals with a very important matter. And the manner in which your authority deals with investment decisions is crucial to enable it to discharge your priorities and your ambitions. Members will be familiar with this report because it was on the agenda for your executive board meeting on the 22nd of October, and it's been through various iterations and consultations, which in part have led to the making of the administrative error that we've just resolved. The recommendations are on the bottom of page 39 of 84. There isn't really any benefit to me reading those out, but I'm happy to take any questions that might exist and in relation to this and deal with them as far as I can.
Yeah, I've read the report, very happy with the report. I know it's come back for the second time. Just one bit I wasn't sure about. It's on the second page, reasons for recommendations. On the second paragraph, it says the investment portfolio holder, Councillor Handley, would convene and chair. I wondered if that should actually say that the investment portfolio holder or relevant portfolio holder should convene and chair, rather than using the single name of Councillor Handley. Given if she's not available, then that's the answer that
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, good point.
Okay.
Yeah.
That acceptable. We need to vote on that change, I think. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
So that's within the reasons for the recommendations.
Yes, so
So-
the recommendations is that I'm suggesting we change the investment portfolio holder, Councillor Handley, to the investment portfolio or relevant portfolio holder. Would then convene and share, because all your eggs out in one basket.
And Mr. Mayor, are you happy with that along with all members of the executive board?
Councillor Handley's also happy with that.
Yeah, I'm happy with that recommendation.
Sorry, I just wanted to raise one other thing, but I'm happy with that one.
Right, are we finished with that one? Right.
Absolutely. And I still do have some concerns on governance on this paper, and I think what I would request is that we do have a review. We would always expect a review of a new policy procedure anyway. So I think if we can say clearly that we'll monitor it, have a review. 6-month review and then annually,
Well, sorry,
Scrutiny.
Yeah.
and to scrutiny.
Scrutiny of the operation, that's it.
Scrutiny would be the inclusion.
Just to ensure it is working as we expect, and we would, a review would be the back, yeah, there's some tweaks that we need to do.
Mr. Mayor, I'll happily ensure that the chair of the scrutiny committee is requested to include that review on a regular basis, as you suggested in the scrutiny work plan.
Yeah.
So that we are a transparent review process.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Cool. Any further questions?
I think one for Mr. Mayor. Just I'm looking at the proposal. From my side, it's well grounded in terms of particularly inward investment. I was looking at it from the lens. However, the one thing that seems to be missing for me is a review of the actual structure of how we're formed in terms of inward investment. So we keep talking about a single front door. How does that structure get reviewed in terms of, from a business perspective, landing in the area? How do we ensure we have that face of a single front door with the marketing information all gathered in one place? And it just seemed missing from the overall scope of the works.
Mr. Mayor, I'll happily take that point. The members of the board will be aware there is an urgent paper to be considered later on the agenda, which relates to the emerging structure for the organisation. And one element that comes out from that is how are we going to deal with the single point of contact for inward investment? And there have been a number of discussions with 2 local authorities and others on the South Bank as well in terms of estuary related investment opportunities. And we are working towards getting to a point where we can agree a way forward between 4 local authorities, the 2 mayoral authorities, to meet the requirements to set up a mayoral led joint committee on inward investment. And that will fall out of starting to get structures in place and as I say, ongoing discussions. It is a critical point that in the Humber over a number of years, there's been a number of different organisations that have been established, and you could run an argument there's an element of competition which is not helpful, particularly in terms of feedback I've had from significant overseas investors. Their expectation, not unreasonably, is single point of contact, and the wiring that goes below that is a matter for the single point of contact to sort out. So that issue will get picked up, but we do have to move the organisation along to make sure that Mayor Luke has the right small team of people based in the organisation to pull those levers and to make sure that single point of contact is put in place.
Yeah, no, just to second that, like the message should be one strong message and not a diluted message coming from all sorts of different places. It should all get channeled through that one strong message, and we have that one strong voice in the region that fights for everybody's needs instead of having a diluted message where it's coming from all over. So yeah, that is a structure that we do need to put together. Thank you. Any further questions? Board happy, content? Sure. Item 10, notification of intent in principle for the bus grant funding allocations and delegated authority 26-27. I will now hand over to Will to present the report.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So presenting this paper on it, sorry. Just signaling my intent to speak after the presentation.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. So present this paper on behalf of the Mayor and our portfolio lead, Councillor Tucker. We're proposing this paper to the board today so that we can manage the Department for Transport's bus grant for 2026-2027. You may remember that at the last board meeting, we spoke about the fact that some of the funding from the Department of Transport is particularly late this year. And this is another example, but I think it's right that we put in place the accountable process. So this paper suggests that I'm working with officers within both East Riding and Hull. We put this paper together that continues a model that was agreed in 2025-26. It allows us to provide some early certainty so that both councils can actually plan their contracts for services that will actually start in April 2026. It also provides cover for the legal responsibility for compliance over bus grants. So it's very much a regulatory paper. We believe this approach, and we considered many that you can see in the wider paper, but we can see that this approach does 5 things. It delegates operational delivery under Section 101 of the Local Government Act, so it gives control and continuity. It keeps HACA very much aligned and accountable for compliance assurance and reporting to DFT. It starts to speed up and consolidate spending under a mayoral transport priority. So that is things like access, inclusion, reliability, sustainability is built towards a mayoral ambition for transport. It also uses joint governance through the Transport Officer Group which is a meeting that is held every 4 weeks with constituent authority. With quarterly financial and performance report, and we'll use that as being the barometer of how this grant is spent. And it ensures that we move towards a more consistent Hull and East Yorkshire branding and communication as we move forward and as the MCA expands. I think this paper is vital because it actually just confirms we don't think the funding allocations will be in place until December 2025. It does ensure that the councils can protect and plan supported services without any interruption. So as a result, I push this towards the board to recommend that the board approves the delegation model and authorises the chief executive in consultation with section 73 officers and our portfolio holder to confirm final allocations once DFT funding is actually announced.
Thank you, Will. Question, yes, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy with the report and I'm happy to vote with it. Just one small proposal for an amendment. Under paragraph 2.3, which confirms the bus grant expenditure would align with the Mayor's transport ambitions, which says housing, jobs, skills and the environment. It doesn't say health and wellbeing, but we know buses are used by residents important to get people to parks, leisure centres, hospital appointments, and I know the Mayor's passionate about health and wellbeing, as am I.
Yeah.
So I think it would be important to recognise the Mayor's ambition on that bullet point.
Yeah, no, thank you for your recommendation. Thank you. Councillor Tucker.
Thank you. Very little to add, Mr. Mayor, except for I've been fully briefed by Mr. Dunnett. Fully accept the recommendations and the ethos of the report. It is crucial that we get this through because obviously we know that time is pressing and we know that the money is being delayed, but this will put us in a position where we can give continuity of services next year. So more than happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Mr. Mayor, so Councillor Cultish has moved that the term health and wellbeing gets added to the 4th bullet point of recommendation set out in paragraph 2.3. Is that seconded?
Yes,
I agree.
Yeah.
So the recommendation is amended to add the phrase health and wellbeing at the end of the 4th bullet point in paragraph 2.3.
Thank you. Is the board happy and content to recommendations? We go. Thank you. Thank you, Will. Item 11, budget outlook 25-26. I will hand over to Julian to present.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the second financial update to the board in terms of its budget since the original budget was set in March. This is based on the spend position as at the end of September and forecast made on available information. The headline on the revenue budget and page 76 provides a summary of the spend today and forecast on the revenue budget. The main variance there is the remaining budget for the investment programme of 5.7 million. Plans are still being formed and are emerging around that investment programme going forward, and of course that is subject to the governance around the investment board from the paper earlier on the agenda. So we haven't got any forecast against that for the current financial year as yet, because that depends on the timing of those proposals emerging and being approved by the investment board. So there's a recommendation in the report to transfer any surplus on the investment programme budget into an investment fund earmarked reserve at the financial year end. So that's reserved for future investment and the programme investment that will be agreed through the board governance. That issue aside, on the remainder of the budget, there is a forecast surplus of 0.7 million, mainly due to two issues. One is a projected £358,000 surplus on employee costs, which is a reflection of changes that have occurred as we've moved from interim arrangements into more permanent arrangements, which, you know, there's ongoing developments with, in terms of that, but that's got us into a better position than previously forecast. And also £287,000 surplus on investment income, which is detailed in section 5 of the report around treasury management, where so far we've already achieved a £424,000 return on investment for the year, and we're projecting that will increase to over 800,000 by the end of the year, so that's good news as well. The remaining section of the report, section 4, it is just setting out the capital budget for 25-26, 56.4 million. What I'm intending to do is at the next financial update, we'll start to bring in the development spending plans from the constituent authorities, provide some information around spend to date against those different grants and projections for the year. We are assuming all of that money is going to be fully committed by the end of the financial year, with the exception of, again, the investment fund, where plans are yet to be developed through our new governance framework around investment, which is the £4.67 billion budget. So if they take you to the recommendation, as I've already referred to, recommended that the executive board approves the transfer of any surplus on the investment fund budget out to an investment fund in our reserve. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Julian. Councillor Ross.
Just note on page 6, the table that's got the expectation that forecast all to be spent within the year. Well, I just, in terms of update, in terms of where that's up to in terms of plan first.
Yeah, it's an assumption that that will be fully committed in one form or another. So similarly, I think we'll review the position at year end, and my assumption through this is that funding will effectively ring-fence the community investment fund programme, and we would look to be carrying that forward or setting it aside into a reserve for use in future years. At the moment, I don't think we haven't got any firm commitments against that community investment fund at the moment, but I know there's work underway to consider some quick win proposals on that, and things that have been ideas that have been submitted, and things that align with mayoral priorities, and that would fulfil the ambitions around the community investment fund. But moving in the new year into a more detailed exercise around submission of proposals and review of those proposals. So in terms of the 4 million, possibly won't be fully paid out by the end of the year, but my assumption is if we don't do that, we would carry forward for personal work. Thank you. Yeah.
And thank you, Julian, for paper. Just one thing on the capital budget, and I'm pleased that you said that the next update will be a breakdown on there, so that we can look at those allocation with the governance and all this. And just can we have a reflection within that of the revenue and the resulting developments as the same as it's going through programs as well. So if we're looking at profile, it's you know, it's kind of what Michael's saying there.
Yeah.
The possibility of the further.
Yeah.
And in relation to revenue as well.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have any further questions?
I'd just be happy to move, Mr. Mayor, with the recommendation from councillor Dan. But anybody wants to second me now? Well, that's hard work.
Moving on to item 12. Hull and East Yorkshire's Combined Authority and the Armed Forces Covenant, Care Leavers Covenant, and the White Ribbon Agreement. I will now hand over to Alan to present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the Mayor has said, this paper relates to 3 significant national covenants and pledges. I've set out in section 5 of the report on page 81 of 84 what those relate to. First one is the Armed Forces Covenant, and I will read this out because I think it's a really important issue. which is a public pledge to treat service personnel, veterans and families fairly through delivering recommendations to the board. I'll come back to the recommendations. The second one is the Care Leavers Covenant, which is a national initiative to improve life chances for care leavers 16 to 25. And this will enable HACR to publicly sign the covenant, appoint a care leaver champion and coordinate with both councils and other employers. And the final one is the White Ribbon Pledge, which is a commitment to end violence against women and girls through prevention, education and culture change. I think I would make the point, both constituent authorities have signed up and have been very active in these areas for some time. Just to take you to the recommendations, and again, I think it is important that we just go through those just in a little bit of detail. The first one is to approve the Mayor's signature on behalf of HACR to those three covenants and pledges. The second recommendation is to delegate to myself the appointment of a champion for each covenant area. And the intention would be to look both at officers, but also board members if there was a relevant interest in picking that up. So I'd throw that one, if you approve that, back to board members. If anybody would like to express interest in one or others of those areas, we can deal with it. The third recommendation is to work in partnership with HACR's constituent authorities and other partners to further the causes covered by each of the covenants and to report periodically back to this board. And just trying to tie this together properly, you might also want to ask the chair of the scrutiny committee whether he would want to consider including reports back through the scrutiny process as well. And then the final one to sweep up is to delegate to myself any actions necessary to implement the foregoing recommendations. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I've got no real questions. I support all the recommendations. I mean, this is an issue that's very close to my heart because some of you may know, some of you don't know, I'm an ex-serving soldier. And I think the Armed Forces Covenant is crucial. And I think the key role, why would you argue against the Care Leavers Covenant or the White Ribbon? So I'm very happy to support every recommendation and move them. And I didn't just volunteer for the job, by the way.
I'm absolutely happy to second that. I think that's all of them are.
Thank you.
Yeah, just, I mean, absolutely, the armed forces, the care leavers and the White Ribbon. I just want to say a few things as far as White Ribbon is concerned. I just wonder, is the Mayor's office going to be an accredited White Ribbon office? My office is, a lot of businesses is, White Ribbon is very much through business, commerce and work environments. And just to give the Mayor some of the insights that I had when I was first into post 4.5 years ago. I'd worked in a totally male environment on a steelworks, and we didn't have women or very few women within the workplace, and therefore I was not as attuned as I am now to the trials and tribulations vis-a-vis violence against women and girls, the misogyny agenda and everything associated with it. And the information that I got at that point was that domestic abuse is basically 70% against women and 30% against men, but 92% of the perpetrators are male, and 97.8% of women have had some form of violence against women and girls, misogyny, and leading up to serious sexual violence. Now, I'm a father and grandfather, 4 daughters, 4 granddaughters, and I'm also an engineer, and 97.8% seemed really bolted on, and I did question, is that accurate? So I went to my daughters and I said, 97%, 97.8%, is that right? They said, no, Dad, it's completely wrong, it's 100%. And I then decided that I would be moving forward at pace in my role as much as I could to further help the violence and against women and girls thing and the misogyny thing. And I'm an ambassador, and I would just ask, would the Mayor consider also being an ambassador? Because I'm a granddad, you're considerably younger than you, and we want people of all ages to be ambassadors going forward, because some people will listen to me, but won't listen to me because of my age, and some people will listen to you. So I would think it would be really, really good if you could do that for the women in your community.
I'm certainly in supporting everything what you've said, so yeah, definitely look into that for sure.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Board happy to content the recommendation? No, thank you. Moving on to the last item on the agenda. Urgent item, senior staffing structure. We agreed to take the next report as an urgent item for the following reason. In order to deliver the mayoral priorities and to maximise benefit to the people, the businesses, visitors, all communities within Hull and East Riding, it is necessary to move forward from the internal structure through a process. That process now hand over to Tony and then Miriam to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the first thing to do is to seek assent from yourself, Mr Mayor, and from members of the executive board to take this, to accept this report as an urgent item for the reasons that the mayor has articulated there. Is that agreed?
Yeah.
I'll now hand over that having been agreed and the report being accepted as an urgent item to my colleague Miriam, who will deal with the technical details and answer any questions from the board.
Members will have seen the previous iterations and the various options that have been put out informally for discussion. After much debate and discussion and taking on board views from various organisations, including the constituent authorities, we have finally managed to come out with this permanent structure. It's recommended that the executive board do a number of things to note the content of the paper and make comment on its content, which I'm sure you all will, to enable the combined authority to begin recruitment in earnest as soon as we can to its substantive structures. We're asking the board to approve the structure for executive and director level posts. We're also asking the board to authorise the chief executive head of paid service to convene the employment panel and make appointments to that panel as per the terms of reference that have previously been agreed in March this year, and proceed with the recruitment of those executive and director posts. We also would ask the board to delegate the authority to approve and recruit posts below executive director and director level to the chief executive. So those departmental structures underneath this one. So they are the main recommendations that we're requesting. On page 2 of 4, I just want to make the point that a number of the roles, in fact, all of the roles, will be subject to really clear and rigorous and independent job evaluation. So all of these posts will be looked at and evaluated across that kind of independent approach to ensure that we're paying and evaluating at the right levels. You can see that the mayor is quite clear and keen that we don't have a siloed approach to the way that we work. A number of our programs of work are connected together, in particular the transport agenda, which has been raised on a number of occasions by members of the board and the scrutiny board in relation to transport affecting every part of what we do. And all of the other programs of work need to connect together. We wanted to create a structure where that siloed working was not possible and that we could push forward and work together in that way. Employment of a direct workforce, and members will be aware that we have functioned since the combined authority was created in February. We have functioned on a mixed up structure of agency, consultants, fixed term contracts and secondments. This isn't an approach that gives us that stability and direction of travel for the future. So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this work at pace. Over the page on page 4, section 8, the financial implications. These posts have been indicatively costed, and again, I will bring members' attention back to the point that the posts have not yet been job evaluated. So these are indicative costs only. And the indicative cost brings us to a figure of 1.545750 million. The capacity funding that we heard about from the budget report of 1.6 million does cover the cost of the structure at its indicative costing level.
Sorry, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, yeah, thank you for taking us through the paper, and conscious obviously of the decision that was taken earlier around paying, rating, so which has implications for this. Mindful of the view expressed in there, which I'm with around keeping it lean and not too heavy. I think that has to be key to how this is taken forward. I guess just one point of clarity that appreciate on the strategic operations, those are all separate posts. On the director of corporate services, he's saying those are functions that fit underneath the director of corporate services, as opposed to those as separate posts, right? So those are functions that fit.
They are functions, yeah. So what we will be doing is developing job roles and then putting them through a job evaluation process to see what level they need to come out. But they will be below service director level.
Right, so additional jobs.
Yes.
Okay. I guess conscious that we have been functioning, as you say, in the main proposal of sort of interims and conferences on. I need to get on with this, but in the sense of how long do you expect it to take to get to a point where we have more of the organisation in place? Are we talking sort of
Well, we
6
have,
months, 9 months?
yeah, we already have gone through a procurement process to instruct a recruitment company, because obviously we don't have our own internal recruitment team. The microsites are ready to go once the posts are evaluated. And we are looking to appoint to the top level of the organisation, subject to approval from the board, of course. The very top level of the organisation, we're looking to go out to advert before Christmas, and to appoint to those posts by the end of the financial year.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Miriam. Just one really quick question, and sort of agreeing with what Mike said there from the original movement this morning.
Yes.
And just a question on the political advisor, who does pay and rations on that? Because the arrows might be missing.
The pay and rations come under the combined authority for the political advisor.
It's just
And that's
that
in the
The arrows are on here if you want to see.
I just can't. I've got arrows.
You've got arrows.
The political advisor usually-
Well, on here it says special advisor, so I don't know why there's.
Well, whichever it is.
Yeah.
And it was just the pay and rations that, not just the work you look looks after the calendar.
Under the constitution for the authority, the mayor appoints directly under the combined authority is his own political.
Okay, so there is
The
a
pay and
arrow
rations is sorted here.
Just to clarify, but of course, all the correct procedures in terms of any payments, etc., follow as they are for any other employee of the authority.
And they've been appointed, you say,
Yes.
it started.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor Ross said, I'm very aware of what we did with agenda item number 7, where we delegated the principal and delegate consultation with yourself, the executive. That aside, because there are some costs in here, I am more than happy to move the structure and that's before us today, but being very, very mindful of the implications. And because I think before yourself and the council leaders have met, chief executive, there needs to be just put in the box to the side of that.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yes, ma'am. So yeah, happy to move, I don't know if anybody's seconding, but.
I was only going to add something in for us to think about, and that's this give, and I agree with the principal, by the way, about keeping it as light as possible, and what you've proposed is the right thing to do. But this is the what, and what's on my mind, I suppose, is the how everybody works together and the developing of a new organisation and the work you put into that. I don't know how you're thinking about picking that up, Miriam, but just it's so important with a new organisation, isn't it, to get the culture right, to get the ways of working right, to get how things work right. It's separate to this, but something to properly think about. And I know in previous iterations you had a more senior people person. I can understand how it's ended up where it is, but that work I think would be really critical.
I mean, go on.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Mayor, yeah, we are starting from this position. I think my expectation is that this will take, should it be approved and we resolve the earlier matter, which I'm confident we can, we will be making appointments, the board will be confirming appointments, January, February, March, in the run-up to the new financial year. That there will, I suspect that there will be notice period implications in most cases, maybe not all. And as Miriam said earlier, we've got an external consultancy, a recruitment consultancy firm that's been commissioned to support us in that process, because at the moment Miriam is the authority's entire HR function. So yeah, in reality, I think what happens here is we will make these points. The point that's been made about the culture of the organisation is actually really important, because what we have to do is to foster that one team position. We are one team, and what sits aside of this structure will be a corporate management team, senior leadership team type structures, which pull together at different levels the management arrangements for the organisation, and pulls in some of the cross-cutting issues. And that's all got to be developed to one side of actually doing the nuts and bolts of this, because we've got a lot of things to do. We haven't got a lot of time to do it. So, you know, I would support this strongly. One other thing I would, Mr. Speedy raised the point about economy and investment. You will notice under the strategic operations, the bottom directory is economy and investment. And that's your lead person in terms of sorting out this issue of having a whole raft of different people in the area of supporting investments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just happy to formally second Councillor Tucker's proposal. I don't think it has been.
Yeah, no, thank you for that.
Ooh, then.
Well, so the board's content and accept the report. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. That's